All right, it's another video. There are a lot of little ones here, but so we talked about how to combat imposter syndrome on different times, and there's the general topic of learning how to learn, and know you can. And the single greatest way to combat imposter syndrome, which I don't like the term, I talked about it before. Imposter syndrome implies that you're trying to pretend that you're something that you're not, when in fact, that would be more like a liar. You lied, you didn't know it up front. Imposter syndrome is usually referring to you're being paid to do a thing or whatever, and you don't feel like you know everything necessary to do that job. Well, one of the things that learning how to learn properly does for you is it helps you with that confidence, because if you're going into a situation, you know how to learn it. So the reason you need to learn how to learn first and regularly do it is for two reasons. Two questions that were asked here is so that you can be more confident in your ability to learn and know what you don't know. So you're more confident in the interview process, and so that you have created ways that you can demonstrate your ability to learn to somebody who's going to have to trust you and pay you. So employment is about trust. You want to get a job, get someone to trust you to pay you. That's it. Whatever that is. Everybody's different. They all hire based on different ideas about what that trust is, but ultimately getting paid is creating trust. Well, if you're being hired for a job that's an infrastructure job or a cloud native job, and God knows that, they're hiring you based on your ability to learn and adapt and move quickly with the new technology. So they're going to want to see you do that. So this video is just about one thing. The benefit of learning to learn and having something of a personal method for doing this and being able to kind of follow it consistently. And I'm going to start with a story. So yesterday, I was packaging up some things to put out there for some deliverables I've been asked to do in my new job. And at a moment, it was late at night, and during the middle of the time, I was sitting there on my bed, Indian style, with my legs crossed and writing code on my laptop, and bundling it all together, and I had my links searching set up and everything, and there was a pretty complicated thing that I had to learn very quickly. I had to learn specifically, it was role-based access credentials in Kubernetes in order to authorize access. So it's a complicated thing, super complicated thing. I mean, when I went into it, I was like, really, I have to set this up? And I had to do a ton of reading and research. And within 40 minutes, I had it all. Because I was able to search really quickly and research it. I was using links-based browsing. I didn't even open a graphic browser for the entire thing. I just did all text-based, instantaneous searches. I was like, that's not good enough. Okay, off to this. And I had it open in a window, and I was cutting and pasting it back and forth. I wasn't copying and pasting the stuff. I was reading the different angles on it. I was putting up Stack Exchange stuff, and you've seen me do this on the stream. But my ability to research and to learn the thing that needed to be done for that was demonstrated immediately to me, and I was able to do it in 30 or 40 minutes. I was able to get that blocker out of the way, and then when I ultimately had the test pass, I was just in hallelujah mode, because I thought that was going to take me a much longer time to do that. So why do I tell you that story? That story is not just a brag, but I want to say because at that moment I was reminded. I remember pausing when I kind of went to take a break, thinking to myself, I just proven to myself that I can learn anything possible as fast as possible within an hour or two. And then that dovetailed into some thinking and reminding about I would be a good hacker. I was like, if I was going to do hacking, I would be researching and testing and experimenting and writing about it as I did it, RWX, and then I would end up being able to hack something and have the report and everything. So I was thinking, man, all the same still applies to hacking as well. And so that experience helped me know that I could do that again. And I was reminded that because I had that experience, that I knew that I could do it again. And I knew that I could do it again. And the more you have these experiences as an individual, the more individual sort of, consumable moments of learning where you're like, wow, I just learned that quickly. Or other times where you're like, I'll tell you what, when I was starting, there was just so much to learn. I think the danger, and this is probably a different video, the danger when there's so much to learn is that you're actually learning a ton, but you're not getting the hit to your confidence as you go because you're not compartmentalizing the learning and saying, look, I did this, I learned this. Look, I learned this. Look, I learned this. All you see is all the stuff you haven't learned. So if you can compartmentalize that, and if I was going to draw a distinction between last night and when it happened, and 3 weeks ago when I was thrown into this stuff, and some of the streams, I was like, I don't know, man, this is like insane and crazy and everything. I was feeling overwhelmed, and it was actually it was the code book. That's exactly what I was doing. I had compartmentalized this particular thing into a code book, separate. I'm calling them labs these days, but I put it into a little lab, and I said, okay, this lab is just focused on this one thing. And so I did a little lab. I read about it. I researched it. I wrote in my logs every time I made a quick discovery. I'd rewrite my understanding of it in my own little log, and then I would experiment. I would experiment with my log, and I would change it up. And you can read all the documents. I found out by the way, I found out about kubectl explain today, which is another video. If you're into cloud native, stop right now and make sure the number one command you understand is kubectl explain, because it's basically man for Kubernetes. and I didn't know that it existed until today. I mean, I knew, but I didn't know how good it was. So anyway, so that little code book thing got me into the next phase, which was, okay, I can do that. Now I'm good to go. And so when I had my interview today, it's a really great interview, actually. My interview I had today was a milestones interview to see where I'm going, and I mean, it's a little rough to admit, and I did openly about the rabbit holes I got pulled into, coding the Go client, which is not required for the deliverable, playing around a little bit with Terraform and seeing how that relates, GCP. They're not related to my immediate deliverables, but so I was able to be public about those rabbit holes that I got sucked into, that drawn away from the immediate thing, and plus my desire to do everything in my own local lab, so that I didn't blow up their infrastructure. And so, but the process of learning how to learn rapidly increased my confidence, and it helped me to speak more confidently during that interview, as I think it would if you were interviewing for the first time. If you're interviewing for the first time, I think those little learning opportunities are going to help you have that confidence. The question still remains, how do you build trust with your employer, your current employer, or your potential employer? And I'm going to say that the answer to that is deliverables. You have to produce something they can evaluate. I think, fulfilling a certain requirement by a certain date is a form of that. But I think more importantly, I don't know how, it's different for everybody. In my particular case, it meant creating a single shell script that did all of this work and included the tests in it, and set up kind, and set up the cluster, did it all, right? Was the script overkill for this particular task? Probably, but I wanted to demonstrate in the script, and I don't know if it counted with them for as much, but that's what they do. Sometimes it's not always about demonstrating the skill to the person who's immediately trying to hire you. Sometimes it's about demonstrating your skill to the people you're going to work with. And I don't know if that's the case, but I at least have an artifact now that someone could go look at and say, wow, I didn't know that's how you set up bash code completion. That's cool. Oh, you did that. I didn't know that you needed RBAC. Oh, I was stuck on RBAC for my kind registry. Oh, that's how you set up a local registry. It's all encapsulated in this little script, which I'll be putting out there for the world to see as well. But my point being that sometimes proving that you know how to learn quickly is not just to the person interviewing you, but it's to other people on your team, because of meritocracy. So, and I don't know, I don't know if I want to go, hey, go look how cool I was, go look at my thing, but at least I have something out there that they can look at. So the answer to that is deliverables and artifacts. You have to show whoever, that you can learn. And the only way to really prove that is to put something out there that demonstrates that you've learned something. And this reminds me of a case of somebody that I mentored for a long time. Is at Columbia now. Brilliant person, who really struggled because he had nothing to show for his learning when it came time to do university applications. And he'd been here for 4 or 5 years, absolutely brilliant. And it was a struggle. It was a real struggle. He was the kind of person that's so brilliant, they can't be bothered to write anything down. They just write code. They amazing machine learning algorithms. The math brain on this guy was just like over 9,000. And he's still to this day, he's one of the people that I look up the most. I mean, just being able to keep up with a conversation with him was just a constant struggle. And he didn't want to do what he didn't want to do. He just didn't do it. And I remember when it came time to demonstrate learning ability in the form of college applications, that he largely failed at that because he had nothing to show for it. And about a year before the college application thing started to come up, I started harping on him. I'm like, this is really amazing. This is really amazing. Really amazing. He just wanted to do show and tell. That was it. He would do show and tell, show and tell, and show and tell. And if I had sat there and written it all down and made him a blog about what he was doing, everything, it might have got him, a better possibilities. But it was real crunch time when he came to apply, because he had been doing all of these really amazing things with me at SkillStack, but he had nothing to show for it. And it does not matter how many times I would say, you need to start capturing these things. And so the reason I tell you this story is because in his case, being able to demonstrate that he knew how to learn quickly, because he knew he had to learn. His confidence was over the sky high. His confidence was too high. He knew he could learn anything, anytime. He didn't need to prove it to anybody else. At least that's so he thought, right? He didn't need to demonstrate to anybody else that he knew how to learn. But in fact, he did. And when it came time to demonstrate that he knew how to learn quickly, he couldn't do it because he had no artifacts to prove it. So, and the reason I'm telling you this story specifically, not just to motivate you to do that, but is to help you identify a way to demonstrate your learning, even if it doesn't take the form of a script or a program or something like that. Most of the time, this is the W in RWX, okay? If you're following the RWX method, so you're researching, you're writing about your research as you're doing it, your conclusions, the things you're doing, not a lot, but you're taking notes like, an 18th century scientist or something. And then you're experimenting and exploring, and executing on the stuff you've been learning. You can do all that. So this person was reading a lot and they were experimenting and exploring a lot, but they didn't write anything ever. They didn't write anything. There was no proof. In fact, telling him to write was like, he would like groan and go the other way and I don't want to do that. It's boring. I don't want to do it. But the downside of that is that he never ever produce any ongoing artifacts. And so if you try to ask him later, well, it would really be great. You remember that project you did a year ago where you did blah, blah, blah? He's like, yeah, that was awesome. Yeah. Could you write down something about it? Oh, I don't remember any of it. And so he had nothing to show for his learning. He had no active log of his learning. He had no learning log. So you might groan when I tell you to just take down little notes about the things you learned today, or today I learned this, or this is the thing I did. Here's a link to this little work I did. But I'm telling you, how's it going? But I'm telling you, if you don't do that, you will be in a position where you will know that you can learn, but you can't prove it. And so my answer to that is do the W in RWX. Take a moment, no matter how fleeting you think it is, to write about your learning as you're doing it, to log your learning really quickly. And you might even find that you find other ideas because you've had to congeal an idea into words a little bit. And when you do that, you may actually find another angle on it. But most importantly, in terms of this question, you'll have proof that you have been learning and the insights you've had and all of that. So when it comes time, create a knowledge node. Yeah. When it comes time for you to apply for that university or to talk about it in your job or something like that, or to justify your raise or whatever, you've got a lot of data that you can sift through and congeal that out and say, well, here's some specifics of what I did, and here's a write-up of how I did it. And by the way, here's a couple blogs. So if you're doing like logging and Zettelkasten, if you're doing those two together, you probably will have a more publishable artifact out of that as well, which will probably be, a polished blog post, maybe a paper if you're an academic type. It'll be a library like Pegan, like I did, or you'll have more published artifacts that can speak for themselves about your ability to learn and do research. And if somebody really wants to get into the nitty gritty of how you came to that conclusion, you've got a log you can send them to. So that's my answer for that. Any other things? I thought of blogging on LinkedIn about my Learn to Code path. I hate LinkedIn. I would never use LinkedIn. I got off of it. Elsewhere, LinkedIn on LinkedIn, absolutely not. So the question about whether you should blog on LinkedIn is a separate question, but I would put all of your learning artifacts on GitHub. That's my current recommendation, because GitHub is far more valuable to you. If people discover you on GitHub, you're more likely to get a job than if they discover you on LinkedIn. Just true fact. And in a knowledge node, yeah. A knowledge node is, they're talking about a knowledge node is just a way to capture information and post it to Netlify. Yeah, keep a running log. I like to call it a log instead of a blog. People hear blog and they think it's more of a big deal. Whatever you do, make sure you own what you do. And that's not the case if you put it on Medium. If you put it on Medium, you can't get it out. You put it on LinkedIn, you can't get it out. There's a lot of blogging services that own you and keep you hostage, and I would never do that. That's why I suggest GitHub for that. So that's the place to write down about your projects. Sometimes actual code. Sometimes it's just writing about what you learned, a paper or something like that. All right, I'm going to end that video.